folks on Facebook.
Hello.
Hello, folks over on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Comic Shop Talk Live, brought to you by Black Cat Comics in Rockin' Milpitas, your one-stop shop for all things superhero. Shop online at black-cat-comics.com. We're keeping it connected to the comic book community. I'm Mark.
I'm Francie.
And we've got a great show for you today. Lots of things to talk about.
So many.
Big news, big comics, all kinds of fun things. This is an interactive program, so we want to hear from you. We want your thoughts and opinions. We want your questions, comments, and queries. Throw them at us, and we'll respond as eloquently and efficiently as possible.
Yes.
Always like to start the show with little comic shop news.
Comic shop news.
That was pretty good.
That's good.
Huge
news.
Little rough news today, as has been trickling out for a little while. More layoffs have come from DC Comics.
The hammer has swung.
Has come to DC Comics from on high, from the overlord of AT&T. And particularly the latest news is a couple of folks that we're very familiar with.
Yes.
Stuart Schreck and
Adam
Phillips. And so, guys, if you're watching, we're sorry to hear that they've freed up your future. That's big news. As the news that has been rolling out from DC has not been positive for a few months, we're all sort of, adjusting to these roller coaster dips.
So what does this mean to you as the consumer, as DC has made another very substantial round of layoffs on Monday of this week? Well, the people that they laid off is very telling. So the two names that Kazi already mentioned, Stuart Schreck, Adam Phillips, there's another one, Vince, I can't remember his last name. They were all the retailer or direct sales guys. So they're who we would interact with as retailers.
Direct market liaison.
So they basically kind of gutted that whole department. So that means there's no longer anyone at DC Comics Publishing dedicated to working with retailers.
Working on the direct market retailer otherwise, like their convention people.
Right, they got rid of the
comic shop people.
The guy that does their conventions too. So that to us is very telling. We've known for a while that AT&T is all about the bottom line, and they're trying to trim here and cut there and make it more efficient, the publishing arm of it. And the rumors, are rampant about what this means as far as their ability to continue to publish monthly or biweekly digital or print comics. They've talked about really gutting down the print run to maybe 12 of their core titles: Batman, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Superman, etc. So we are waiting to see kind of what that looks like for the foreseeable future. They've got a ton of stuff coming. The first half of 2021 is packed with DC stuff. But the layoffs that they made this week are very telling. One other thing, just a side note, the woman that they put in charge of the editor-in-chief, Marie, and I can't remember her last name, she's not going to be reporting to Jim Lee, who is the president publisher of DC Comics. And typically the editor-in-chief would report to Jim Lee, right? The fact that she's reporting to a general manager in DC Comics is also very telling about potentially what Jim Lee's future is looking like with DC Comics. So rumors abound, lots of questions unknown. We shall see how it shakes out. But that's a pretty big indication of the pathway that DC as a publisher is going.
And of course, they're, one of the big two. So as DC moves and shakes, comic retailing moves and shakes as well. And that's a big deal. Like you said, there's a lot of books on the slate for the beginning of 2021. There's a lot of announcements coming out, content-wise and creativity-wise. So it's not like they're packing up shop, but there's definitely a change of plan. There's definitely a change of venue, a change of priority going on over at DC. So like I say, we'll have to wait and see how all that pans out.
And, they talked about, well, maybe another publisher will pick up the licensing to publish Batman comics. The behind the scenes info is that a publisher's already looked into that, and the money that Warner Brothers wants to license out their properties for comics isn't worth. There's not a cost benefit analysis there. You'd spend too much money doing that. So that's not looking like a likely alternative either. But who knows?
So, like say, wait and see. Let's hear what that means from you guys. What do you think about digital first things? What do you think about the prospect of digital to trade paperback and them cutting out the periodicals? That's something they talk about. All sorts of things I'm sure they're working on. But again, not exactly great news. Layoffs are never good news for obviously the folks losing their jobs or for the folks involved in that industry, which of course definitely includes us.
I have a question for you all. If you couldn't get your regular DC comics anymore, would you stop collecting, or would you gravitate more towards Marvel, Image, Dark Horse? So talk amongst yourselves. We'd love to see your comments.
Ponder that.
Ponder. Think about it.
So a lot of people are comic book people. And so, when, as I've talked about, like with myself back in the 90s, everybody knows I'm a big Marvel guy. And so,
comics, yeah.
I went to Valiant just so I could read more superhero comics. I was okay losing my Avengers, but I needed to keep reading comic books and keep reading superhero comics. So I just found another superhero universe to read. But they weren't gone. I just wasn't liking them,
right.
Well,
and that, one other very telling development this week is that you definitely cut back on your DC books. Yeah. One other very telling development is that Jeff Johns with Gary Frank are doing a new title called Geiger, I think, for Image. So, and that's not news. Lots of artists.
Everybody
does
works
stuff
at other publishers,
with Image, but it's interesting that he didn't choose to stay within the DC universe to do that.
And they've been DC exclusive for a long time. Gary Frank hasn't done too much else for a long, long time. So that's a little telling too.
I myself personally will follow good story, good art, no matter who's publishing it. Aftershock, AWA, Image. Tinian's doing Department of Truth for Image has been really good. The new Aftershock book's really good. So I'm excited about what I'm reading outside of DC as well. And so if, DC also loses the talent and those talents go to other publishers, like I'm on board, I won't skip a beat on that.
Sure. And I think a lot of folks are like that. I think a lot of folks follow their creators across the publisher lines or across titles. And I think, a lot of us just love comics. And so we'll follow other things. But it would still, there's other factors. There are lots of people who read Batman, who read, their book, and that's all they're interested in reading. And I get that. We
shall see.
Publishers. Yeah, like I say, I would like to think, like Michael, that folks will, just start. And I do that every week anyway. If you watch the Wednesday video, I'm always encouraging you Marvel folks to pick up a Dynamite book. I'm showing everybody all the different publishers, all the different things that everybody's doing. Because I love comics.
Just like
and if you love comics, I appreciate that you love your DC heroes. I love my Marvel heroes. I love all heroes. But anyway, I appreciate you love what you love. But if you love comics, then all the publishers are doing great stuff, and you can totally find other things to read.
Yeah.
But at that same time, I would also say, and I've seen this thrown around with the layouts. As far as DC goes, you talk about lowering the title count. There's probably a lot of fat to be cut. There's something to be said for less is more in comics. There's something to be said. And again, you folks have heard me talk about this all the time. Don't make 15 X books, make 3 X books and make really all of those people buy those 3 books. There's a a rationale behind multiple books for the same character, you know, different art styles, different whatever. But cutting all that back can focus your fan base. And instead of selling all these titles, if you cut it down to just these, you know, then maybe DC can really, you know, do some strong storytelling, some strong universe building in a smaller universe.
My pessimistic side. So one of the other things I read in that same article, and there's a bunch of stuff, CBR, Bleeding Cool, Comics Beat, they all talked about the news that we're talking about today. One of the other things they said was they're going to be trimming the rate that they pay their talent. And so
that's why they're going to Image.
Just going down to 12 issues or 12 titles doesn't necessarily mean the quality will go up. You know, if you're Tom King, if you're, you know, like you said, Jeff Johns, if you're Tom Taylor, you know, if you're top talent and you're making top dollar and they're like, psych, we're going to give you a pay cut. You might need that money to, I mean, it's not a lot of money to begin with, right?
That's true.
And so if you're going to be cutting top talent down, they're going to be like, I'm peace out. I might be going to Image. So I wonder if they'll be able to maintain quality, given that they're really cutting the bottom line. They're really cutting corners in a lot of ways.
Well, I was just saying that I think they could shrink to be the size and manageability of a lot of the other publishers that are out there right now. Their
overhead is so much they can't survive. They can't sustain themselves.
Right. That's a big problem too.
So Ruben's asking, has the expansion of the X universe since Hickman translated to more X sales? Or are we back to where we were prior to the dawn of X?
No, I'd say it's definitely increased sales on X books. I think it's definitely brought the attention back. Are they back to, you know, 1990s X-Men numbers? No. But across the board, I'm ordering a pretty decent number of all of those books. Obviously, some still higher than others. But yeah, I think people have definitely checked out books that they wouldn't have normally been reading. I think from Marvel's end, I'll just sort of over summarize. From Marvel's end, it has worked exactly how they wanted it to. Hickman's launch was very successful, brought a lot of people in, and now the X of Swords thing kind of has brought those people to check out other books and more people to come in and check out the whole thing. So I think it's doing what it was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, from our specific little microcosm, I'm seeing a lot of people that are pretty DC heavy adding the X of Swords stuff to their subscription list. So that's been a good thing. Expanding out into the X universe.
And that's a lot of what comics needs, is getting back to the content, making people excited about the content. Metal Blood Lord.
You have to say it like that.
You do. It just comes out like a Metal Blood Lord. I agree to some extent. He's rather disparaging on Doomsday Clock and its connection to Watchmen and to comics.
Yeah.
I was mildly disappointed because I didn't feel it did what it should have done. I was lost.
I'm like, wait, what's happening?
I thought it could have been even bigger and gone deeper, and they kind of they didn't do with it what it should. That being said,
it went a little Garth Ennis on me, Grant Morrison just like took off. I'm like, wait, what's happening?
But I do appreciate the connection of the Watchmen universe and the DC universe.
That was fun.
I thought it was a good try. I love the art. And I love the effort. It just didn't quite come together.
Did you like Batman 3 Jokers by Jeff Johns?
Okay. What I wanted to see happen in Doomsday Clock, I wanted you to see that at the end of Watchmen.
What are we talking about? So comment on YouTube saying that Doomsday Clock really just sucked and that it ruined Watchmen comics. So we're just having a little debate about that.
And everybody's people are going to love stuff, people are going to hate stuff. That's comics. I've always said that what people love about a book and hate about a book is most often the same thing. I just wanted more connection. I wanted you to discover that Dr. Manhattan caused the crisis, that Dr. Manhattan caused the multiverse. I wanted you to discover that after Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan came to our universe and tried to fix it. And when he couldn't fix it, he kept trying. And that's where we get Crisis and Final Crisis and all these things.
Hey, I think DC might be looking for more writers. So there you go.
I've been talking about this for 10 years, so they're a little late. But like I say, it wasn't what it could have been, but I thought it was all right. And I think it will also hold up over time.
I haven't finished Three Jokers still. It's on my stack. So I might agree with you once I'm finished, because I'm a little off on the first issue. So I'm like, if this is another timeline, multiverse thing, I'm out. I'm checking out.
Yeah, I know he didn't make Crisis. I thought they were going to say that he did, and I thought that would have been really interesting to sort of tie all the universes together. Anyway,
so in good comic shop news, Kickstarter said they made like $22 million, or not made, but there was $22 million that funded comics in 2020. That's gigantic. That's a lot of freaking money. So that tells me that comics are still a viable medium with which to consume your entertainment, and that there's enough people out there to sustain the industry. So publishers, if you're listening, it's out there. You just need to figure out how to deliver on good content, good stories to the right folks.
That tells me a couple of huge things, and a couple of things I've been saying about the industry forever and ever, which is, number one, the fans are out there. There's hungry people out there for comics, and they're hungry for content. If you give comic book fans content they want to read, they will buy it and they will read it. When comics are not selling, when DC's laying off people, when they're canceling titles, when publishers are going under, it's not because people aren't buying comics. It's because people aren't liking what they read. And that's just the absolute fact. And I say that not just as a retailer for almost 20 years, but as a fan for almost 50 years. That's just the way it is. And it's been proven 100,000 times. Batman 608, the first issue of Hush. Yes, I understand it's Jim Lee, but 607 didn't sell for beans. 608, kaboom. And so that's how these things go.
So Metal Bloodlord, our friend Michael over here agrees with you on the Three Joker thing. He called it, good characterization, good art, but it was lazy and rubbish, he said, for the storyline. So you guys are in agreement there.
Rubbish.
Good British term. And yeah, HBO Watchmen is phenomenal. Like yes to all of that.
Like I say,
yeah, Watchmen, if Alan Moore had his way, Watchmen probably wouldn't be part of the DC universe. He'd have it as an independent. He'd probably take all the rights back.
That was what it was. It was never intended to be. But 30 years later, everything always turns into something else.
And Michael's saying, I either accept that Batman is the world's greatest detective from 60 years of reading Batman, or he is that doofus who hasn't been able to tell he has been dealing with different people for years. Agreed. Yeah. Right? Out of character.
Sort of like, how can Lois Lane be the world's greatest reporter if a guy puts on a pair of glasses and she's totally mystified?
Come on!
But Christopher Reeve proved that makes perfect sense.
That's true.
So like I say, the Kickstarter thing, it shows that people are hungry for great content.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay for great content.
Good story, good art.
And it doesn't need to be these legacy heroes that everybody knows and loves. It doesn't have to be something that everybody's been reading for 800 years.
But it does need to have Keanu Reeves' name attached to it.
Well, we got ours, and ours only has our names attached to it. And so, as I say, DC Comics, everybody out there, and more so than the DC Comics, all you guys out there who are looking to do your own comics, be motivated by that.
Yeah.
There's a market out there. There's a paying market out there for people who are hungry for comic books. So make your comic, get it out there, get your Kickstarter going, get your comic out there. People want to read it. I think that's great news. I think it should be good news for Image Comics. It should be good news for all the things we've been talking about. Comics aren't dying. The economics of comics is changing. That's all.
I agree with you, Michael, and I agree with you. And I think if we look at the music industry, it might be similar to what we're going to face. Right. So a lot of the musicians have kind of started to cut out labels and to put their stuff out directly on their websites. You know, Nine Inch Nails, one of my favorite and best bands of all time. They don't really deal with record labels or distribution. Like, they do all their stuff themselves. Like, when there's a new album, I go to nineinchnails.com, NIN.com, and I download it as an MP3, and then they mail me the record, right? There's more of like a direct from creative talent to consumer options with the interwebs, but also things like, you know, honestly, Shopify's made you know, consumer consumption from seller to consumer a lot easier and a lot more transparent. So we shall see what happens with that.
Yeah, but like I say, it's definitely the future of comics.
I'm with you. I only like superheroes when they are dark and edgy and depressing. Yes. So
I sort of inferred
Hellblazer.
that by your name being Metal Bloodlord.
Hellblazer.
I'm a little more of a Captain America, Superman type. I like to know the good guy's going to win.
No. Other news? Mandalorian still rocks.
Okay.
Still rocks.
Spoiler. Anybody see Mandalorian last night? Super awesome. Or maybe you just need a little more this guy in your life.
How is Image able to, so Ruben's asking, how is Image able to successfully maneuver the industry via floppies and trades with creator-owned universe and DC's having to cut back? Is it the overhead on Batman and much more significant than they say Alex Cott's Lost Soldiers? Yeah.
Yes.
So the articles that I've been reading this week, Ruben, are talking about like literally the overhead of like even the buildings that DC Comics operate in, the building in Burbank that they rent or own, so a lot of the people that got laid off this week were still tied to the New York office. So maybe they're going to be shutting down the physical location of the New York office. So when you're Image, you don't have things like rent for space, payroll, right? Because there's not. I'm sure you do,
self-employed.
but everyone works from home, and everyone turns in. I'm sure there's headquarters and everything, but it's not. They're not as.
Image doesn't have editor groups and things like that because everything is self-owned.
There's a lot less overhead for Image Comics.
Well, and there's so many points to that, but a couple of things that immediately spring to mind on the positive and the negative side to this. On the positive for how Image makes it work, they're shipping a lot less. They're shipping fewer. They're producing fewer copies. They're shipping fewer copies. They're shipping fewer copies to fewer places. So you can streamline a whole lot easier than you can if you have to produce tons of Batman comics. So they can streamline a lot better. They can print to order, almost exactly print to order. So you can keep your numbers tight. That being said, where all the other guys come into danger is that Image can't sell their books if I'm not here to sell them. If people don't come to my store to buy Batman, they're not going to buy Lost Soldiers. Yeah. Not everybody, obviously, every publisher has their fans and whatever, but for the most part, the people who come to my store are here to buy Marvel and DC comics, and they buy all the other stuff while they're buying their Marvel or DC comics. So Image does a fantastic job of riding the coattails of Marvel and DC. That's how they've been doing it since day one. That's how this whole industry runs. We're all riding the coattails of Marvel and DC. So when Marvel and DC take that coat off, what do? And I think that's the challenge that Image has, that Dark Horse has, that Dynamite has, that comic shops have. Right on, Darkness Comes. We're rooting for you, buddy. We're looking forward to it.
What?
He says, I'll be back soon.
Yeah, and you're right, Darkness Comes, that Diamond, the main distributor, hasn't really helped the situation as far as, them closing. Very controversial, but COVID was scary. Nobody knew what the heck was going on. Warehouses were getting COVID like crazy. They've got a huge, gigantic warehouse full of college kids that pack and ship our books. And they didn't know how to handle it safely. And so they shut it down because we were shut down. You know, they didn't want to keep sending new material to stores that were forced to close. So everything just kind of paused for a month or two. But that pause didn't really affect us, nor did it seem to affect our colleagues. So I don't think that has to do with the issues that we're currently seeing with DC. I think DC's been on this trajectory for years. Ever since AT&T took over Warner Brothers, this has been a black and white bottom line part of the Warner Brothers arm. And if you're not producing, if you're not in the black, you're cut.
Got to do it. Davis Comics says, I'm struggling with DC's new direction coming up. It seems like a good jumping off point. And honestly, that's a really important issue that I think all of comics faces. And I think Marvel has been rebounding from that. Speaking of, as we were talking about the X books earlier, is jump off points. People talk a lot of jump on points, but jump on points are also jump off points for the people that have been reading and enjoying what they've been doing.
More than the former.
More than the former. New 52 came, and
and
all kinds of people.
Good.
Right, but a lot of the hardcore people weren't around to enjoy it. They'd already left. When they said, hey, we're ending the universe, and all the titles ended and all the numbers ended, and they made this whole big deal about New 52, they lost a lot of people. Now, the launch of New 52 was really popular, and they gained a lot of people, and it was really successful, but when it started to peter, when they lost the people that had jumped into New 52, they had already lost a chunk of their core base. Then the people who jumped in at New 52 went away. So now you're left with half of your core base, half of the people who had jumped into New 52. That's your rebirth audience. So as each thing goes, it just kind of shrinks.
The first year of Metal Bloodlord, the first year of New 52 was phenomenal. Come on, you got to give it to the Animal Man and Swamp Thing. That was, and Jed Winnick's Catwoman. Like, come on, dude.
I say across the board, Aquaman,
those were really good.
Across the board, all the New 52 volume ones are great reads. They just couldn't hold it up. But like I say, and as Darkness said, it's easy to blame DC, but it's a whole confluence of things. You got to come up with new stuff once in a while. But if people don't like your new stuff, you're going to lose some of those people. And
I want to also mention Davis Comics commentary on the new stuff that's coming from DC. So I took a good look at it when I was doing the subscription list this week. All the Future State stuff, which was just rebranded 5G. So the 5G stuff that they talked about earlier this year and kind of canned Dan Didio over, they're just rebranding it as Future State and relaunching it anyway. The look of it is, honestly, as us core oldies, we're not the target audience for it. It's a younger audience. It looks cartoony. I'm sure there's some good stories and stuff and art in there, but nothing I read got me excited when they were soliciting it. So I'm clearly no longer the target audience that they're going for with the Future State. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it comes out and knocks our socks off, but I'm a little weary.
I'm with you, Wild Sharks. I'm an old guy too, obviously, and I was okay with melding the universes. More is always better, in my opinion. That's what comics is all about. Speaking of comics, shall we talk a little new comics before the clock gets away from us?
Sure.
This is a comic show. To sort of over-encapsulate a little of that, it's always about the content. And as long as you guys are here wanting to read great comics, as we'll be here selling great comics, and the industry will continue to move along as it has for 80-plus years.
Who knows? So while we're on the DC kind of trash talking a little bit, I'm going to bring up my book.
Trash talking. We're just being factual.
We're trying to be informative. What's coming? Punchline. So here's the Frank Cho cover, which I love, the Frank Cho cover. Again, a little controversial. Not my favorite new character. I think Harley was great, and I don't think she can hold a torch to Harley. Not that she should, not that I need to compare the two, but when you're bringing in a new sidekick to the Joker, he or she needs to kick some ass, and they need to be as crazy and as interesting, at least half as interesting as the Joker. So this this issue is what happens post Joker War, where she's Punchline is on trial and she's trying to say that she was mentally unstable and split personality and all this stuff, and yeah, it's interesting, it's okay, it's great. Is it gonna float your boat and make you feel like, oh my god, I love her so much, I can't wait to get a t-shirt at Punchline? Nah, probably not. But it's all right. It's all right. That's kind of my I know. Cosby's like, don't talk about things you don't like. Only talk about things
Oh
you
no,
like.
that's not a thing. It's just I agree with you though. If you're going to introduce, okay, to not make it about Harley Quinn, they gave the Red Skull a sidekick, well, more of a partner or whatever you want to say, and they called him Crossbones, and that was awesome. Crossbones was a great character in and of himself. He made a great sidekick to the Red Skull. You didn't know the Red Skull needed a sidekick until he had Crossbones, and then that was really cool. Because Crossbones, again, was cool in and of himself, but also made the original character cooler. And in a lot of ways, that's what Harley did. We were introduced to Harley Quinn, and she immediately answered the two immediate questions. Why does Joker need anybody? And why her? But she was immediately funny and cool and tough and psychotic. And so
she had her own rich story and history.
Had all of that. Paul Dini gave her all of that. So you understood why Joker would have this relationship.
You guys over there on YouTube, you're funny. You guys are funny today. You're on point.
I like Spawn. And I would say I'm giving Punchline that opportunity, but so far they haven't delivered. I was hoping this issue would deliver that. I didn't get that. I wanted that. Oh, that's why the Joker is.
And honestly, we've got stacks and stacks of #1. So maybe I should say it was really good. You need to buy it.
Everybody needs 3.
Everyone needs like 5 issues
It's a great
of
cover.
it.
And there's lots of room for potential. I give it that. There's lots of room for potential. They just haven't quite sold me on her yet.
So catching up on some comments over here. Metal Bloodlord. So asking what we think of Tom King's Rorschach. So here's my biased opinion. Despite him being kind of a douchebag, I love Tom King. Like his writing can't be beat, in my personal opinion. He could probably come in, take a dump in my store, and I'd still like him. That's so I'm biased. I'm excited for it. I hope it continues to be good. But we're only 1 issue in or 2 issues in, so I don't really have a strong opinion about it just yet. I'm digging it so far. What about you?
I'm kind of digging. I think he's a great character, and I liked the before Watchmen stuff. Maybe not so much in execution, but at least in concept. And I always want to see more done with those characters. So just them giving him an opportunity to do something more with the character is cool by me.
Did you like the 3 Jokers origin update?
I haven't read enough of it to say. I haven't gotten there yet.
I don't like when they mess with the origins.
I was going to say, traditionally speaking, I never like when you mess with origins. I almost never, and you not to say it can't be done. Everything can be done in a cool way, everything. But going into it, I don't like rewrites. I don't like that everything you knew was a lie and this is what actually happened.
It's all a dream.
I never ever like people unwriting what has been written. You can do what Bendis does, like with the Illuminati, and you can squeeze stories in between the stories that people know. But I don't like it when they redo things. Now, that being said, it can totally be done. It just takes some real talent. It takes John Byrne level talent. Got to sneak that name in every week.
And yeah, Wild Sharks. Yeah, it does. She does punch. He's writing. He or she is writing. I like Punchline, but feels like they're trying to force her on us. Yeah, I kind of got that feeling too.
It's a little bit like Carnage. They made Venom, and everybody loved Venom. Then they made Venom a hero, and so they needed a new Venom, so they gave us Carnage. They had Harley. Everybody loved Harley. Then they made Harley a hero, so now we need a new Harley. And I get that. Like I say, comics is always about change. And I learned this the hard way, but whatever it is you love it while you can, because they're going to change it. It's going to be something new next year.
Yes. What's on your list?
If we're sticking with the DC thing, I'll take both the good and bad side of this whole conversation. Who's taking over Superman when Bendis leaves? It makes me really nervous that they haven't made any announcement about Action Comics and Superman. He's the character that launched their company, and Bendis is a big name. So filling his shoes is going to be a big deal. I've loved this run. And last week when I mentioned Action, everybody heckled me because you DC people don't like John Romita Jr. So I'm bringing up this because if you don't if you don't like Ivan Rice, then you don't like comics. Ivan Rice is awesome. is some of the top talent. This is just some random conversational page, and it's gorgeous. I know I'm saying his name wrong. I give up on trying to say people's names. I call him Ivan Reese. I've heard Yvonne Reyes. I've heard all kinds of things. Either way, he's one of my favorite artists working. And so
he did all the Blackest Night stuff, right?
People who say I don't read Superman because fill in the blank.
Because he's not dark enough or scary or edgy enough, right?
But Bendis's villains have been covering that. The villains of Superman are supposed to be that dark and ominous and whatever.
But yeah, that's very, it's very telling what they leave out of press releases, right? Like Bendis is leaving, ...
Right. Nothing Why did they announce that he's leaving and not announce somebody taking over? But anywho, Superman, again, if you're all joking aside, if you think you don't like, if you know you don't like Superman, if you've never read Superman, I would encourage you to pick up the volume 1 of this or of Action and at least give it a try. It might not change your mind, but it's a great example of what Superman people like about Superman because it's just a lot of fun.
Yes.
Let me round out the DC thing by saying Green Lantern. Grant Morrison, Liam Sharp, great stories, great art. Number 12 will be the last one. And as we're talking about, I don't know when we're going to get a Green Lantern book again. I don't know when we're going to see Grant Morrison ever write superheroes. So I would really encourage you guys to pick up season 1 and season 2. Great science fiction, great space cop stories, classic DC stuff. And with that, just absolutely beautiful Liam Sharp art. Let me show you just anything. I'll just open some random page that's not ads. And just, it's great stuff. He does great stuff.
Metal Bloodlord. He's saying Jeff Johns is a bad writer. I would challenge that and say, Blackest Night is some of the best stuff I've ever read. I'm reading comics for 20 some odd years. I'm a writer. That storyline was like legit good. So if you haven't checked that out, do so. And if you have checked it out and you think it sucks, and I think, there's not much to say. Try Sandman. Neil Gaiman's awesome.
Yes, Wild Sharks, you're right. Superman has been good for a long time. It was good before Bendis. It's been very solid for a long time. But Bendis's run, I feel, has been quintessential. Not like, all time, not like Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern. Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern is as good as it gets. And I wouldn't put this on that level. But again, I think it's indicative of what Superman fans love about Superman. And it's been just a really fun read.
Manuel, no word on, she's asking any word on Lucifer Comics. 0. One of the main layoffs this week was, I can't remember his name, but the guy responsible for Black Label Books who tried to revamp Vertigo and it failed. So Lucifer and a lot of the stuff from the Sandman universe. That stuff is over. There's no talk of Hill coming back at all. There's a couple new Black Label books solicited for the next 6 months or so, but like honestly, I think that might be dwindling and going away too, which is really sad. It's like the DC Vertigo arm of DC was just some of the best stuff ever, in my opinion.
Well, and it also hugely expanded the readership of comics. And I think that's something that gets really lost. And per all of this conversation today, I think that's something comics hugely needs. It's something everybody's always trying for, but hasn't been successful at. And Vertigo was really successful at showing the world that comics can be more than superheroes.
For a while.
Well, for 20 years, and in the scope of comics, let's say from 1986 to 2006, and that's as good as you get in comics.
That's a good run.
The Black Label stuff's really great.
Yeah, it's been great. Dude, that Hellblazer, I always want to say Hellraiser. Hellblazer. I think it's Tom Taylor again. Can't remember. I'm loving that. I love that book.
Which gets to Wild Shark's thing about Adam Strange.
I'm loving it.
Strange Adventures is really great.
Not as good as Mr. Miracle, but it's good.
Well, I think the source story isn't quite as rich. I think to me it is as good, but the Mr. Miracle story, the Kirby material gives you so much to play with, and the Adam Strange thing doesn't give you that much to play with. But it's a great story. How shall I say? I've been talking about character fusion. I want to discover that I'm forgetting her name now. Adam Strange's girl on the other planet. I want you to discover that that's Deja Thoris. That he's actually John Carter.
Nice.
I think that would be fun.
DC looking for a writer. It's full of ideas.
Oh, I'm full of a lot of things. And yes, Wild Sharks, and they're doing that actually. You're talking about bringing back original Earth 2 and original Earth 1. They're bringing back original Batman as part of this future state thing, and that's to me going to be really interesting. Just because they will now establish that he exists. And that the golden age did happen and all that, so that'll be fun. And
then one more comment on Adam Strange. I really like how they're using Mitch Gerard's art and Doc Shaner's art to tell different parts of the timeline. I think it's seamless. I think it's genius. I love it. So I'm really digging the art direction of that book also.
I love when they do stuff like that. One of my favorite things is, and I won't be able to cite it because I'm old. My brain doesn't work like it used to. But there's a page in Sin City, in one of the later ones, one of the ones with Dwight, and it's and you see Marv. You realize that what you're reading is happening at the same time that thing with Marv happened like 4 graphic novels ago. And that was really cool because it's not at all important. It's just that when you see Marv in the bar, you're like, oh, and your mind clicks and suddenly all these timelines snap in a way that you weren't even expecting. And I don't know, I like the use of time in comics. I think it's one of the neat things that sequential art allows you to do.
Yeah.
And they're doing it masterfully
it's good.
In Strange Adventures.
Good times. So non-DC talk.
Okay.
Hellboy. Who doesn't want a new Hellboy book, right?
I want one all the time.
I mean, it's fun. Is it gonna make you change your religion? No. But it's interesting. It's a great escape. They're always good art, good fun. This is a one-shot, so you don't have to read anything before or after it. And it's great art. So I'm gonna show you a little snippet of that.
Love Hellboy. I always say to what you're talking about, Hellboy is like
fans out there.
Hellboy is like a delicious hamburger, is like a perfect piece of pizza, is like a wonderful piece of chocolate cake. Chocolate cake, it's just a piece of chocolate cake, but it's fantastic. It's not nobody reinvents chocolate cake. You know what you're getting, but when you get it, it's delicious and you love it. And you eat the whole meal, but you save a little room for it. And I think that's what Hellboy is. He gives you that that perfect burger every single time.
It's a great analogy.
Well, I say some things don't need to be redone or reinvented. They just need to be great. And he definitely delivers that. Speaking of which, bam, Darth Vader. Look how cool that cover is.
Agreed.
And when I put it over my face, it's me. I'm Darth Vader.
Nice.
So, been talking up the Star Wars stuff from day one, and Darth Vader is the best of it. And like I always like to say, you don't have to be a big Star Wars fan to like this stuff. What makes this all cool, particularly the Darth Vader stuff, is that they really get into the psychology of the character. They really get into, in all the different series, they get into his relationship with the Emperor. And that's so cool because as Star Wars fans know about the rule of two, these two would be deeply, deeply connected. And there's a lot in the movies that you don't see. And that, of course, all of us fans theorize and whatever. And they put these into the books. The Emperor is not happy that his Death Star got blown up. Whose fault is that? This guy. Anyway, I've just really been enjoying the Vader series. This is the third ongoing that they've done, and there's a couple of minis. This one takes place just after Empire Strikes Back. So, Vader now knows he has a son. He knows that somebody's been hiding him, all these things. So it's just a great book. I'll show you a little of the art. Here's Vader kicking butt, because that's what he does. He kicks butt and he doesn't care about names. Awesome stuff.
The black saber. Just remind me.
Yes, the dark saber. So yes, those again.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Excuse me 1 second.
Okay, then I'll continue on my Marvel bit after Star Wars, and that's to talk about Savage Avengers. Love me some Savage Avengers. It's kind of been coming out about every other week, so you probably heard me talk about it a little bit. I love the Dark Team, Metal Bloodlord. You say you like the dark heroes, the edgy heroes. Doesn't get any edgier than Conan the Barbarian. Juggernaut is on this team now. And as you can see from the covers, so it's not a spoiler, there's Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, makes his Savage Avengers debut, which is awesome. Just a really great team, great creative team. Love me this Savage Avengers. Show you a little. I mean, it's not that spoilerific. Check that out.
That's awesome.
That's some gorgeous art.
Awesome sauce.
You can hate Marvel, but you can't hate dragons, man. Nobody hates dragons. Come on. Flying horses. Dudes on flying horses? Come on. That's just cool. Savage Avengers is one of my favorite books. Do
you guys think the MCU inspired Rebirth? Do you guys think the MCU inspired Rebirth? I mean, like the movies and stuff?
I would say no.
Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I think
I
wouldn't think so. I think Rebirth came from
New 52. What do we do now?
A need, to have a separation. Good, bad, and indifferent. Comics likes branding, and they both do it. Comics likes to have a thing.
Drawing the line at $2.99.
Little things that you can put on the top of books that say, "Hey, buy every book that has this on it," and what they call trade dress is what they call it in the industry. I don't know why. And so that's what I think Rebirth is. It was a way of saying, no, we're not New 52. Right. Everybody hates New 52 now, and that's not us. But see, I feel like what they've discovered with that and a little bit of where we are now is why I like legacy numbers, why I like One Earth. Just frickin' do it. When you have to reinvent all the time, then you, what we mentioned earlier, you have jump off points. Whereas when it's number 687, it's just number 687.
Yes. So if you guys aren't reading this book, you absolutely need to. 7 Secrets. I know it's backwards. Sorry. Tom Taylor, Seven Secrets. Da Vinci Code meets mystery meets James Bond. Great art, great story. It's Tom Taylor, the Sea Sky. He's doing lots of things that I'm loving right now. The art's it's not everybody's style. It's slightly manga-ish, but not really.
Action driven. It's action driven art.
Action driven art. But I'm really enjoying it, you know, and again, I'm a real stickler for story. And so if it doesn't catch me in the first issue, I'm over it. And I'm really excited about this series. So if you're not reading it and you like what how I described it, make sure you add it to your list. It's good stuff. From Boom Studios, who also sponsored our Kickstarter. Thank you, Boom Studios.
Thank you, Boom Studios. Get back to doing more Planet of the Apes. In original apes stuff, Boom Studios. Sorry, tangent. While we're on non-Marvel DC stuff, you're talking about Boom Studios. This is Rye from Valiant, one of my favorite books these days, because I love sci-fi, as you may notice if you ever watch me do anything or listen to me say anything about anything. I'm a big fan of the Valiant universe. They do a little bit of this renumbering thing that we talk about a lot, which becomes a bit problematic. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with number 21, guys. You don't have to stop at 12 all the time. But anyway, Rye's a really good book. And the cool thing about the Valiant universe is that it's not a remake of the original universe, but it's also not totally dramatically different. It's thematically similar to some of the things you would remember if you read the original stuff. If you didn't read the original stuff, you're not missing anything. So I like Rye again because it's sci-fi, it's futuristic. He is the savior of Japan, and it's a little bit samurai. It's a little like Mandalorian. It's a little bit samurai, a little bit Western, a little bit science fiction, and a whole lot of fun. A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. Let's say, we talk a lot of Marvel DC stuff, so I like to. Yeah. You talk a lot of indie stuff. I don't talk a lot of indie stuff, so I like to show the folks the other things I'm reading besides. I read stuff that doesn't have Captain America, not much, really? But sometimes.
My last pitch before we run out of time is Miskatonic from Aftershock. So loving what Aftershock's doing. So I haven't had a chance to read through it, but what I've been able to pick up is it's 1920s, 30s FBI Hoover, FBI agent stumbling onto a mystery and nobody believes her. So what happens? So it's very much based in reality. It's not a fantasy book. It's more of a mystery, historical fiction type of thing, it seems like. But I'm really digging the art. I'm really digging the character so far. So if you want to eyeball some of that action jackson, it's called Miskatonic. I think I'm saying it right. That's what I got. It's in my top of my stack this week.
Wild Sharks. Yes, I did like the beginning of Rebirth. I agree with you. The stories were modern, but they kept the original feel of the characters. Yeah. I felt like the beginning of New 52
was so good.
I liked the breath of fresh air. They were really going for something, and in the beginning I think they achieved that, but then they lost control of that. And so I liked the beginnings of Rebirth and a lot of that, because I agree with you. I felt like they were getting back to that core, and that's really what it's about. You can come up with all the new stuff, but you gotta keep them how we know them. Oh, which is actually a great wrap up for me. And my last one is Iron Man #3. What's the legacy?
Cover. Look at that cover.
Oh, they don't give us the legacy number on this one. Yes, another one of those beautiful Alex Ross covers. I always say any Alex Ross cover is worth $3.99. But this title, and I've been talking a little bit about this. This is a good example of what Marvel is doing in a lot of books, notably Fantastic Four. Is a little what I just mentioned about Rebirth. It is the core of the character. This is the Tony Stark in a suit of armor that you know. In brand new, modern, fun, exciting stories. They're doing a great job of not reinventing your character, but reinventing your character's world. And I'm having a good time with that. And this is only the 3rd issue, so you can pick up number 1. You'll immediately see what I'm talking about, and it will make you want to read 2 and 3. Michael used the word compelling, and that's one of my favorite words to talk about comics, because compelling implies active, that you're being compelled, and when you're being compelled, you'll read the next one. It isn't just about loving this one, it's about wanting the next one.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think Marvel's doing a really good job of that right now.
So what are you guys reading? What's top of your stack this week? What are you guys eager to pick up? What have you read first so far?
Enter the Phoenix. That's my little teaser, and it's backwards, so you can't read it, but it says Enter the Phoenix. Why does it say
dun,
Enter
dun.
the Phoenix?
Dun, dun, dun. So what's next, Mr. Causey?
Well, that begins to wrap us up for this week. Really appreciate everybody's participation and involvement in this week. Always like answering questions. I can ramble about the books all day, forever, but I prefer to discuss what you're reading and answer your questions and things like that. So that's been a whole lot of fun.
Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much. So what's next? The same thing we do every night, Pinky.
Try to take over the world.
So you tune in on Wednesday. You see my video. You read our newsletter. You go to black-cat-comics.com. You pick up the books for the week. You read them through the week. You tune in on Saturday, and we kick back. We talk. We have fun.
Sundays.
That's why it's Comic Shop Talk. And then you tune back in Sunday, 2 o'clock for Matchbox versus Hot Wheels.
And so we're doing Kazi's Classics again the last Friday of the month. So I don't know if that's the day after Thanksgiving. So looking for theme suggestions. So if there's some particular topic, title that you want us to focus on for Kazi's Classics for this month, let us know. And if we can make it happen, we shall.
Because I'm gearing toward comics I'm thankful for, but nobody wants to buy my beat-up copies of Fantastic Four comics. Michael, American Vampire. Yes, I just restocked the first volume trade paperback.
I have it.
So you can look for that next week if you're into the American Vampire stuff.
Yeah, you can't read the current series without going, who the heck are all these people and what's happened? So yeah, you do have to read the first volume of American Vampire to figure out what's going on right now.
But thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your participation. You can find us here every Saturday at 2 p.m.
No, I'll have to block the calendar. Thanks for reminding me.
Yes, we'll probably block curbside for Thanksgiving Day. I'll be deep frying something.
Ooh.
There you go.
Don't set the house on fire.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah, like I say, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next Saturday, 2 p.m. for Comic Shop Talk Live.
Bye, guys.